The Senate Intelligence Committee is one of 4 congressional panels investigating Russian interference in the election. The Senate Judiciary, House Oversight, and House Intelligence Committees are also holding hearings on the issue. Congressman Adam Schiff is the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. He joins us now from the Capitol. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
Why do you believe that there is in the opening statement by James Comey an indication of obstruction of justice when the president and Republicans are saying, including the chair of the Intelligence Committee, are saying they don't see anything like that?
Well, there's certainly evidence here, and if you were prosecuting a case of obstruction, you would admit the entirety of Jim Comey's testimony, and there's not a judge in the land that would exclude it as not relevant to the question of obstruction. But the fact that there is some evidence here doesn't mean that you have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. This is obviously still very early. Indeed, we haven't even heard the oral testimony of Jim Comey. What I would look to try to find out in today's testimony, among other things, because I think we have seen a lot of the outline of what he has to say, is who would be able to corroborate this testimony. Who did he share this information with? What can he tell us about the notes that he took and when he took them? What else can he tell us about some of the details around these conversations? But if you have evidence, as we do now, that the president demanded loyalty from the FBI director in a conversation where he dangles the director's job before him, then asked him to drop a part of the investigation, then asked him to lift the Russia cloud, and then fires him when the director doesn't do any of this, to say that doesn't constitute some evidence of obstruction, I think you have to be willfully looking in the other direction.
Well, in terms of corroborating it, I mean, he says in his statement that he shared his recollection and his memos with senior FBI leadership at the time. But let me ask you this. Do you see intent on behalf of the president in terms of obstruction of justice?
Well, you know, this is one of the key issues, and that is you have Jim Comey's perception of what this might mean. You have the actual statements themselves. We're going to want, I think, as much detail as Jim Comey can provide about those conversations. Were there any other statements that would shed light on the president's intention? And in this respect, this is why we also cannot accept I won't answer the question from witnesses like Director Coates and Director Rogers, because if the president had similar conversations with other intelligence agency heads, that is further indication of what the president's intent is. Probably the single best piece of evidence, though, I would say, of what we've seen in the written testimony is the fact that the president sent everybody else out of the room. Why do that unless you're conscious that what you're about to ask is not an appropriate request?
It seems to me that you're looking for what he did not say in the opening statement rather than what he said, that you need something else to make the case for obstruction of justice.
Well, no, I wouldn't put it that way. But I would say we know, I think, from the 4 corners of his statement, largely what his testimony is going to be. I assume he's going to testify completely consistent with that. And I would have to strongly disagree with my colleague, Lindsey Graham. The fact that Bob Mueller is not worried about his testifying, I think, doesn't suggest anything about how Bob Mueller views the case. Indeed, I would be astonished if he had a view this early in the investigation. Rather, I think it shows confidence that Jim Comey will be consistent in his testimony before the Senate and in any later proceeding. But I wouldn't read any conclusion into that one way or the other.
Congressman Schiff, thank you so much.